Let's bring in some actual analysis here from someone who knows this stuff better than I do, and you, former national security aide to Dick Cheney and current senior counselor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, John Hanna. He joins me now. John, thank you so much for joining me with this. 50 spies, 50 intel analysts say that the intelligence was cooked, all to create a very rosy picture that favors the administration, that makes them look as though they're actually accomplishing something when they aren't. Is this unprecedented?
It's a huge scandal. As you said, Dana, we did have these issues that were raised under the Bush administration, but I cannot recall. These are two senior analysts who went on the record filing formal complaints that they were made to basically make up happy talk about the war against ISIS, and they are being backed by close to 50 of their colleagues that this is in fact true, that are willing to sign statements, affidavits saying that yes, our senior command was acting on behalf of what it looks like political types in the administration to cook the books on the intelligence. This is a genuine intelligence revolt, a rebellion within our military intelligence that the likes of which I certainly have never seen.
And it makes complete sense now, because here we were getting one thing from the administration that their surrogates in the media were none too happy to put all over the front pages of every newspaper and lead every evening news broadcast with it. But yet we're also dealing with the worst refugee crisis since World War II. It's sort of shocking the lengths to which they went in order to hide this. So really, because apparently we haven't really truly understood how bad of a situation now are we in with ISIS. I mean, it has to be pretty bad if they're cooking the books, so to speak.
Yeah, listen, this president from the beginning, his entire purpose of his administration is retrenchment, is withdrawal, is getting out of the Middle East. The thought that he was ever going to have to try and get us into a war to stop this brutality in Syria was just the furthest thing from his mind, his intention, his purpose. And lo and behold, they've gotten the intelligence community to tell everybody, we don't really need to be there. We don't need to go back in. Things are going swimmingly. ISIS is under control, when in fact it's on a rampage. It is winning. America is losing. And the global order, certainly in the Middle East, but now it's coming to the shores of Europe, is slowly beginning to unravel as a result.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, this coupled with the fact, I mentioned earlier we were spending over $40 million training just a small group of these Syrian fighters. I mean, as this intelligence leaks out, it suggests to me that, obviously there's not been a very cozy relationship between this administration and our intelligence agencies. The president's thrown them under the bus a number of times, and Intel's just simply not putting up with it. And I'm glad they aren't, because now I think we really see the dire situation in which we find ourselves.
Yeah, no, it is a disaster. Thank God you still have honest civil servants in the United States government who are dedicated to the national interest in doing their job. And the job of an intelligence analyst is to tell policymakers what it is they see, what it is they believe, what it is they think is the God's honest truth. And it's more the most important circumstance for doing this, of course, is when you've got Americans in harm's way, actually on the ground trying to win a war against an enemy that we have declared victory over is in our vital national interests. So thank goodness we have these people. Now the question is, what do we do about it? What does the Congress do about it? What does the House Intel Committee do about it? What kind of oversight do we have Senate Intel? When are those hearings going to be held? When is John Brennan and every other senior intelligence official at CENTCOM and within the military going to be brought up there, as well as people in the White House, to find out what role they were playing in this true scandal?
And that's the question. How high up did it go, and how on earth, John, were they able to get away with this for this long?
Well, I mean, listen, the kinds of heat and pressure that you're able to bring on people from the White House, from the rest of the U.S. government, the political part of the U.S. government, especially if they've got people like John Brennan at the CIA that are close to the president and acting on his behalf, this can obviously last for quite a long while. That people within bureaucracies tend not to want to rock the boat, and it's a signal of how bad things got that not only did you have 1 or 2 or 3 of these analysts, but 50 senior American military intelligence analysts coming and saying something is really rotten in the heart of this military operations where Americans are in harm's way.
Last question for you, John. Were these documents and these all of the stuff that was submitted by these analysts, was it doctored more for Congress or more for the American public?
No, I think for both. I think for whatever audience was going to see these are highly classified materials. So there were certain people in Congress that can look at them, certain people in the administration. But this is basically when down in history, when Barack Obama says, "Why weren't you there in Syria? Why did you allow Assad and ISIS and Iran to create this unbelievable wound in the heart of the Middle East, a region vital to American interests?" They'll go back and say, hey, look at the intelligence reports that we were getting. They all said things were going well, that we didn't actually need to be doing a lot more, that ISIS wasn't winning, that America was winning. That's the reason we let this bloodletting go on for as long as we did.
Yeah, and I know I said that was the last question, but really quickly, before I do let you go, John, the Iran deal, as Congress is battling it out right now, I know there's discussion that, well, because the president didn't offer full disclosure to members of Congress, we can't, the Corker Amendment is inapplicable to this. I mean, is there still, if you had to put a percentage on it, how much information has the president refused to disclose thus far to members of Congress necessary for them to come to some sort of conclusion on this agreement?
Listen, for me personally, whatever's in those side agreements between Iran and the IAEA about the inspections, I already think the deal stinks. It's bad for America. It's dangerous. Just way too many risks. I don't even need to see those side deals. What I've heard about those side deals, however, that Iran is going to self-inspect only makes more a mockery and a travesty of this entire process. I think Congress and most Congress members have made up their mind this is a bad deal. But the fact is that Barack Obama is going to be able to rely on a very small minority of Democrats within his own party to go ahead with this bad deal that most Americans, as well as most of their elected representatives in the U.S. Congress, think is dangerous, is bad, is not in the national interest. And that in itself, I think, is just certainly against the spirit of our Constitution, if not anti-constitutional itself.
Oh, absolutely. John Hanna, Senior Counselor, Foundation for Defense of Democracies. John, thank you so much for your expertise. Good to see you.
Thank you, Dana.
Up next, Stephen Crowder.